All right, so Anthony Edwards said that this would be the greatest Game 7 ever. Well, I don't know about all that, but it was a darn good one, I can tell you that much. The final score was 98-90, both teams scoring less than 100 points and what was an absolute classic. And Minnesota won this series in 7 games. It looked like early on it was gonna be Denver, but you know what? This deep, well-rounded Minnesota team found a way to get it done, and they did it with their depth. So let's go ahead and get into this a little bit. If you had told me before Game 7 happened that Nikola Jokic would finish with 34 points, 19 rebounds, and 7 assists at Game 7 at home, and Jamal Murray would finish with 35 points, and then Anthony Edwards would score 16 points on 6 of 24 shooting and 2 of 10 from three-point range, I would say that there's no freaking way that these Denver Nuggets are losing. But, you know, that's how the game of basketball works. That's why you gotta watch the game. Minnesota was simply deeper, and they found a way to pull it off. I'm still stunned that the Nuggets let this thing fall away, but ultimately it looked like the better team won. There's still no question that Nikola Jokic is the best player on the court, but they just didn't have the depth. And, you know, after Game 6, they weren't able to score. They weren't able to get anything going. That's why they found themselves in a 50-point deficit in Game 6. And what do you know? Some of that carried into Game 7, where they just didn't get other guys stepping up. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray did their thing, but the third leading scorer was Michael Porter Jr., and he only had 7 points in an inefficient night for himself as well. So now let's focus on the Wolves for a bit. I've talked about this every game so far in this series, but double teaming Anthony Edwards. They did it again early on, and it was being executed perfectly by the Nuggets. And it was so frustrating as a viewer who wanted to see Ant challenge that double team, but he wasn't doing it. He was just completely stagnant, and anytime he'd get the ball, he'd just pass it right back on the perimeter. He didn't try to make a move. He wasn't trying to split the double team, and that's why Minnesota fell down and fell behind early, is because he just wasn't challenging it, and they simply removed Minnesota's best player from the game. He only finished the first half with 4 points. And then I think that's when Finch got in his ear a little bit. And I was getting ready to just talk about, you know, break it down, show Michael Jordan, show Kobe Bryant, and guys like that, showing how you actually go at a double team. Because there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do it. Yes, in a double team, in most NBA contexts, it's going to be smart to give the ball up and pass it to one of your open teammates. But ultimately, you still got to challenge the defense. Maybe you cut to the basket, maybe you drive a little bit and collapse that defense. Make guys respond to you. Don't just sit on the perimeter and give the ball right back to the guy who just gave it to you and just have it be a stalemate where your offense isn't doing anything as the shot clock winds down. Well, I think Finch was in Edwards' ear about that, because in the second half, he was driving, he was kicking. The instant he saw the second defender coming, he was going straight to the basket, and that's what I was talking about. That's what Kobe and MJ used to do back in the day, and he made the adjustment. I would have hoped he would have figured it out before the second half of Game 7, but you know what? They won the series, and he was able to respond better in the second half, so ultimately, it worked. And again, what more can be said about this team? I mean, if you just look at the box score and look at the well-rounded performance, guys like Naz Reid stepping up, Mike Conley did his thing at times, even Karl Anthony Towns making some clutch plays down the stretch, and he was the one who really put the final nail in the coffin with his last basket. And then even Rudy Gobert, in one of the weirdest moments of the game, he looked like he had been invaded by the spirit of Michael Jordan because he made the ridiculous right to left-handed layup like MJ did in the 1991 NBA Finals. And then he had that absurd fadeaway where he basically Jokic'd Jokic. So it was great to see. And as weird as it is to think of guys like Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns as potential NBA champions, and they've got a ways to go, it feels right that these guys are moving on to the Western Conference Finals, because again, they were the better team. It looked like that from the start of the series. It certainly looked like that in Game 6, and it looked like that in Game 7 as they had a more well-rounded effort. As far as Nikola Jokic, I don't think this hurts his legacy. If anything, it even improves it, and everybody is continuing to preach the narrative that he's the best player in the NBA, and that title for him is secure right now. I mean, it was a legendary performance. He played 47 out of the 48 minutes, and yeah, he did look a little bit gassed at the end, but the guy gave it his all. Now, returning focus to the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're moving on. They're going to be taking on the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and I said this in yesterday's video. I think this is going to be a tough matchup for the Mavericks. This perimeter defense of Minnesota is insane, and you can never write off guys like a proven winner like Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, because on any given night, better offense can beat really great defense, and they are great performers. But this perimeter defense is all-time great. And seeing how frustrated Luka got with guys like Lou Dort, again, I can only imagine Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards smothering him. He is going to be frustrated, and I imagine he's going to be talking to the refs quite a bit. As the title of this video indicates, I think Minnesota is not only going to beat this Dallas Mavericks, and I think pretty handily. I'm predicting them to do it in about 5 games. I think they're also going to be the NBA champions. They're almost reminiscent of the 2004 Detroit Pistons, where it's just, I'm not saying their defense is as good, I'm not saying they're the exact same makeup, but they have elements of just a great team effort where any guy can be the best player on any given night, and they believe in themselves, they have the confidence. I think they're the team to beat moving forward. Now, that wasn't the only Game 7 of the day. Let's go ahead and touch on the Knicks and Pacers real quick. Pacers are going to be an interesting wild card moving forward. They have an explosive offense, and they were the team that eliminated the Celtics out of the in-season tournament. So Boston might actually have a tough series on their hands. That offense is potent. They go as Tyrese Halliburton goes, when he's knocking down his threes, when he's driving and kicking, and when he's locked in as an offensive player. They're scary. I mean, they put up 130 points, and by the first half, it looked like they were about to run away with this thing. But let's be real. I feel bad for this Knicks team and for the fans, because it felt like they didn't really have a legitimate chance in this. The injuries just killed them, ultimately. They had 5 of their players injured. Obviously, you guys know about Julius Randle's been out for a while, Anunoby was out, and then Jalen Brunson breaks his hand. And at that point, you had DiVincenzo was just going off, and he was a hero basically in this game, but it just wasn't enough. They simply didn't have enough firepower, and I did feel bad for that Knicks fan base, because you guys are so passionate. And I gotta say, shout out to that amazing Madison Square Garden crowd. Like I said, you guys were chanting DiVincenzo's name at the foul line, even though the game was out of reach. That was amazing to see, and the absolute appreciation that you had for a heroic effort, that was really cool to see. And then the other thing is, that game was a blowout, and I've been a Lakers fan my whole life. So when I see a game get that out of hand, I'm used to just seeing LA fans leaving early. Like if it's a 15-point game, 20-point game with like 4 minutes left, they're heading for the exits so they could beat LA traffic. And it took forever for any New York Knicks fan to leave that stadium. And I gotta say, that is some serious passion, and that's why I was personally rooting for this Knicks team to win this series, because I know how much New York cares about their basketball. And so, in a losing effort, that was cool to see. Again, let's return focus to the winners. We're going to be talking about these series a lot. I'll continue these reactions in the post game. Minnesota over Dallas, I'm taking them in 5, and I'm taking Boston over Indiana in 6. I think that whoever wins that series, they're probably going to get slapped by Minnesota, but ultimately we'll see. I'm getting ahead of myself at this point. I also wanted to do a quick plug. Check out the Johnny Arnett Clips channel. That will be in a link in the description and in the pinned comment. And we will be uploading shorts very often. We've got something like 30 shorts done already. And my editor has just been working tooth and nail to get that done. So we're going to post that over there. So please go and check that out. Very excited to give you guys more short, quick to the point type content, which is kind of very different from what I do over here, which is more focused on like long form content. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.